Okay, folks, it's about time to get started. So let's get started here.
Listen up.
Okay. First of all, we do have some books over here, magazines that are free. If you want to take any of them, we don't want to take any of them home, so take them. These over here are for the drawing, and we'll have that at the end. So stick around at the end of the meeting, and you can win, right? Anyway, you want to lead a little song, Ernie? Pick one, of course.
It's a good time to get away, and it's a good time to know who is standing close beside you and to smile and say hello. Goodbye, that lonesome feeling. Goodbye, glassy stare. Here's my hand, my name is Smile, and I walk, but put your hand right there.
Okay, very good. It's been a very busy month. It seems like it was yesterday I was here, and all the things that have happened, it's been crazy. So we'll get started. We've got two speakers that are listed, and one other one who will probably talk at the end here. And we'll start with Andrew Clark. He's with Americans for Prosperity, Arizona. And we're going to talk a little bit about some propositions and whatever's on your plate. So we'll get started. Give you this.
Sure. Let's see. Everyone hear me okay? There you go. That's good. I'm already loud and obnoxious, so this will just add to the occasion. All right. Well, thanks for having me. Hello. I know one friendly face there. Yeah. As you guys may or may not know, Americans for Prosperity, we're traditionally, hey, man, I know all sorts of people. That's great. We're traditionally affiliated with the Coke Network, if you're familiar with them. We're a nonprofit and issue advocacy group, and what we generally do is advocate for free markets. So anytime there's a choice between government control or freedom of people, we're going to default to advocating that people ought to be more free. So in this election, there's three kind of big priorities left for us. You know, we fought the income tax and the donor disclosure fight, and now we think Governor Ducey's done a great job. We'd advocate for Governor Ducey to be reelected, and then we oppose two constitutional amendments that we think are really bad ideas. One of those is Proposition 126, and the other one is 127. So I know you've got an expert speaker here to talk about 127, so I won't linger too much on that other than to say both propositions have the same problem, which is special interest groups trying to use the Constitution not to protect the rights of people, but to advance their own corporate interests. And there's some major downsides to that. So in 127, you've got solar companies who are trying to give themselves somewhat of a monopoly at the expense of hydro, nuclear, and any other option. It's a really bad idea. Let's talk about Prop 126, as I know for a lot of you, you're going to disagree with me, and that's okay. And for others, it's just a very confusing initiative. So this is a proposition that's being run by the realtors. In Arizona today, you don't pay a tax on services. You only pay a tax on goods. So if you look at the economy as a whole, about 65% of the economy is based on services. So people who repair your clothes or people who repair your car, things like that. And the other 35% is on goods, when you sell tires, if you sell flooring. If you buy goods, you pay a 5.5% sales tax from the state, plus you'll pay some amount of local tax, almost always. You'll pay 0% sales tax on any services. That is the law today. Prop 126 will not change that law one way or another. The only thing Prop 126 says is that tax exemption that is there today ought to be moved into the Constitution. We think that's a bad idea. Lots of reasons for that. Let's talk a little bit about that. One is, from a moral argument, we think you want taxes to be as broad and fairly applied as humanly possible. So, which by that we mean as close to zero as possible for us. And I know other people have different opinions on that. But if you're a lawyer and you don't have, or you're going to hire a lawyer, you don't have to pay sales tax on that, but when you hire a flooring guy, that guy has to take 5.5% out. That doesn't make a lot of sense. It creates a distortion in the marketplace that says the lawyer is more valuable than the guy selling you flooring. That doesn't make any sense at all, at least not to me. I think what you'd rather have is a much lower rate, much closer rate to zero. And that's a discussion we can and should have at the state capitol. You might think there are things that don't ever deserve a sales tax. I know a lot of people think medicine doesn't deserve to have a sales tax. I think that's fine. Let's have that debate. The problem is if you vote yes on 126, it moves into the Constitution and that debate is over. The more probably practical reason why that's problematic is if you're familiar with the economy over 30 years, what's happening is goods as a share of the economy has shrunk tremendously. It used to be the other way around, where goods were 60% of the economy. Over the last 30 years, it's shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, and it projects to continue to shrink. Okay, well, when the state's depending on sales tax on goods as a primary revenue stream, what happens if that goes from 35% of the economy to 30% of the economy? Especially as you have demands on healthcare costs and education going up. They're going to need more money. If they can't tax services, where are they going to go? Then you're left to property tax, which if you want your property tax to be increased, God bless you. Or they're going to go to the income tax. I don't like any of those options. What we'd much rather see is, again, a very broad base with a very low rate so that nobody gets impacted by changes in the marketplace. So I get why the realtors want this initiative out there. They're trying to protect their industry or to give their industry a particular advantage. They already have that, right? There's no transfer tax, which has already been implemented on that. There's not going to be a tax on realtors whether you vote yes or no. They're just trying to literally keep the conversation from happening. There's a good reason that Governor Ducey and David Garcia, two guys who can't agree on the color of the sky, both oppose this initiative. You've got the Koch network working with labor unions. We spend most of all day, every day punching each other in the face, but we're working together to oppose this one. This has really broad support from a very unusual, I call it the Star Wars bar scene coalition, just a very unusual crowd of people. But we all have the same opinion that this is just kind of common sense. And we would urge everybody to vote no. So that's kind of a high-level synopsis. Don't know if you have any questions or thoughts, challenges. Yep.
I just found there's a group of people that probably won't go anyplace, but they're trying to get an initiative to abolish this Arizona state income tax.
Yep.
Would your group be supportive of that?
Devil's always in the details, but I think generally, again, we're going to support taxes being as close to zero as possible. I can tell you that Governor Ducey's always wanted to see the income tax be eliminated. I think he's pretty serious about trying to do that in this next legislative session. And the only way that you're ever going to do that is if you can have a broader tax base at a lower rate. If you don't have that, you'll never functionally be able to eliminate the income tax. And that's why, if that's a priority for you, and it is a priority for us, we'd like to see the income tax either lowered or eliminated. The only way you're going to get there is if you can have a much broader sales tax.
Would that be something like, say, the Colts could put financing behind, or your organization? That's the whole thing, is you got to get 400,000 or 350,000 signatures to even get it on the ballot.
Yeah.
And that just ain't going to happen unless you got $4 or $5 million behind it to get signatures. So,
I mean, I'd say we'd have a hesitation to do it in the Constitution, and this is just because we think the purpose of the Constitution is to protect the rights of every individual, right? That's what we want to try to do. We don't want to try to legislate out tax policy and the other things that we think the legislature is better equipped to do, because the economy's changing all the time, and people do need $5 to $10 million to go fight these ballot initiatives. It's just not a very effective way. I'd much rather they have that discussion at the legislature and make the change there than to do it in the Constitution.
Isn't the very argument that you use against 126 the same argument that should be used against eliminating the income tax? It's narrowing the amount of taxes. It's narrowing the base.
I think
this is where your opposition to 126 completely falls apart, because it's inconsistent. So it's really ridiculous between sales tax and income tax. No, we're against eliminating sales tax and services, but we're okay with eliminating income tax. Why?
So the difference is, let's say we said on the income tax, if you're a senior, you don't have to pay income tax, but if you're, under 65, you do. Or if you're a realtor, you don't have to pay the income tax, but if you're in another industry, you do. If you're picking winners and losers like that, then we would have a major problem with that. And that is functionally how the sales tax system works today. It picks who wins and who loses, who has to pay it and who doesn't. The income tax, like it or hate it, is equitably applied to everybody. And so we like it in both cases to be as low as possible, but we certainly don't like picking winners and losers and deciding who has to pay taxes and who doesn't.
And again, I hate to pick on you, but.
Don't pick on me, I like it.
But you already said, the implementation of 126 will change absolutely zero current taxes.
Correct.
All it's really doing is saying, we don't have this now, we never want to see this in the future.
Yeah.
That's all it's saying.
Yep.
So why would you oppose that? Why would you oppose saying, no, this is one area where we currently, for whatever crazy reason, don't have taxes. Let's just put that, lock that door, throw away the key, and be done with that. We don't ever have to have an argument again.
Yeah, no, and again, I understand that argument. I think, again, if, let's say we had this in the income tax, where if we said realtors don't have to pay the income tax, but everybody else does, we'd have they out there arguing everybody ought to pay the income tax at a lower rate. And it's the same thing with sales tax. So I get if your end goal is I want zero taxes all the time in every situation,
Yeah.
which is also our, it's usually our goal. Right, there's no apology to that. But this isn't the right way to get there, right? The better way to get there is to have everybody treated equally. And we could talk about a whole bunch of reasons why that is. I see all those
I'm
hands.
hearing your words, but I don't buy into the stuff at all. I think back in 1913, there weren't any taxes, or maybe there's one or two. So we've got 100 new taxes on us. It's a burden to take from you. You're thinking of help the government subsidize it, but the government doesn't care how it spends the money. I'm looking at all these beautiful buildings that we whatever, and so I'm thinking just leveling the playing field and screwing everybody by taxing services, because I don't want to pay some return sales tax when I go to an attorney or have my car fixed. It's taken from me. And so in my mind, you're sitting there pretty up that we're going to screw you, but we're not going to use those words.
So the government's going to screw you one way or another, right? Like,
Well, only if they can.
Sure. So let's talk about what the government's doing in a lot of these areas, taxes aside, is Governor Ducey, for example, even though we support him, there's areas where we strongly disagree with him. Yesterday he came out and announced that Bio, the investment firm's moving 1,000 jobs here. The government is going to give them $10 million to do that. We think your money, they're going to give them $10 million to come here. And that's going to go to employee training, it's going to go to tax breaks. That is a very rich, very wealthy company. They don't need an incentive, right? They don't need your money, but we're going to give them that money. When you create a system where the government can pick who the winners and losers are, whether that's who's paying taxes or who's getting tax revenue, that's a system in which lobbyists are empowered, and when businesses have an incentive to go to the lobbyists and go to the state legislature and try to bribe people, long and the short of it. So if you don't have an equitable system, you're just incentivizing that kind of
The
shit.
word equitable is kind of whatever. I don't buy into your definition, but
Sure.
when the government just increases and increases and increases, and we decrease and decrease and decrease. And so this whole thing about adding a new tax with the idea it's going to lighten the burden on those others, that's bullshit. I mean, excuse me. No,
How dare you?
I don't mean to offend anybody.
Yeah.
Kill the feeling. But anyway, it's bogus.
I mean, look, the state legislature can't raise taxes without a 2/3 vote and a signature of the governor. I can promise you that this legislature and Governor Ducey aren't going to sign off on any tax increase that doesn't bring about lowering the rates, right?
He's one governor, though. A lot of politicians don't think like that.
I agree, and that's why we're going to be vigilant.
So
Look,
I'm going to hold on to what I have, and I don't buy into this that you need a $400,000 room. I just make the, when somebody like me shops around and gets it for $20,000, I don't buy into this.
trust me, we've got a 30-year track record of fighting government waste,
So the
corruption, and high
fewer
taxes.
taxes, the better. The fewer access points they have, the better off. Is that fair?
I agree with you, and that's why I think you ought to vote no, but
I don't want to pay sales tax.
I don't want to pay any taxes.
The history on it, I think it's, so people, those things, Michael and I have been around a while how this goes. What happened in 98 election cycle, they did the marijuana thing, it goes up, when 76% of Arizonans do marijuana, freaking man, peace out. It goes to legislative session, comes, and they said, nope, we don't like it, and then we just undid what people did. Sterling, the billionaire that owns University of Phoenix, was the money behind that. He goes, oh yeah? So he does another initiative that says, anything that's passed by the people, man, you gotta have a supermajority to undo it. Well, that just brought in a whole bunch of other socialist crap that they could never get away with, so that caused its own problems. Then they did the elimination of the Arizona income tax, and it made the ballot. They got the signatures, it was up, it was ready to go, and I remember my pizza restaurant, we're delivering pizzas, so we had a bunch of libertarian drivers behind the scenes of the firemen's union and those guys, and Billy Shields, you know, all those guys were the ones behind against it. So we got, oh yeah, you know, tell me more, oh, I'm so concerned, and man, they just giving us all kinds, we knew what was happening weeks, months before. When they finally did get it passed, I mean, on the ballot, and it goes, they sued to have it taken off. And the reason they were successful in getting it off, because they had multiple issues. There was a poison pill that was put in. John Buttrick warned them of this before they even did the initiative. What happened is, out of somewhere, they always go, we'll give you a bunch of money to fund this and get it on, if it includes that all federal candidates take a pledge to do away with the income tax, whatever. Boom, multiple issues. Because if you have, we're going to do this, oh, and we're going to do this, can't do that, you can't have multiple issues on initiatives, yada, yada, yada. Now, of course, when the government does it, referendums, they put a whole slate and they do whatever they want, you know. So, when it comes in, you do the income tax of whatever it is, they're going to challenge it with any and everything they freaking can. When they promise a back tax, we're going to do the value-added tax, you give us that, and then we can do away with the income tax. Everywhere in the world they've ever done that, they got both.
Yeah.
So I'm going, this is so much bullshit, I'll say it. Is that the service industry, I had mobility services we did for decades. I'm going, I didn't have to fill out any paperwork, I didn't have to do anything. All I did was get my tax, you know, thing for buying stuff, and I use it wholesale, and I don't have to pay tax and do it. That's the only interface I have with government. Now they want to take any service business, which would include, you know, computer stuff, which is the vast majority of it. It's going to be everything you do to design a web page, everything that this big giant increase in government on services. You guys advocate for that, you're so done with it, okay? Because I know what's going to happen. So the elimination of the income tax on a principled argument is where to go. Now, whether it's successful or not is not even the freaking point. You guys are negotiating for whatever the hell you guys are doing. It just pisses me off. So the sales tax, I love it to be all sales tax. Then you just know what you're paying, you know? And so merchants, they get pissed off in my restaurant. When I put on, I make a big giant deal. The sales tax was a bigger print than anything else. This is where you can do some activism. So the principle of not, you know, just getting rid of the service, or it's never being done, because you know that's where they're going. Yep. And you not having that position on it, dumbfounded. Dumbfounded. You go back and tell the guy, that is just freaking stupid.
I am the guy. Yeah. I'll take it.
You know, I'm telling you, why would you, exactly what Michael's saying, here's something you know they're going to go there.
Yeah, no.
They're not going to eliminate any of the other tax revenue streams like he says. Why would you not want to shut that down?
Look, so let's talk about your history lesson, because I think it's important with the Voter Protection Act and how these ballot initiatives are working. We have a hodgepodge of a tax system. Rube Goldberg couldn't have come up with a better one. And whether you want to look at 301 or 123, or you go through the litany of tax increases that have come on, it is globbed together and siloed. So we talk about this in education all the time. If you looked at the average classroom, you could say, look, the average classroom of 30 kids has 300 grand in it. The teacher's getting paid 50 grand. Where the heck's the other 250 going? A lot of that is going into just silos and buckets that are set away because Voter Protection Act prevents anyone from touching these buckets. The thing's a mess, and if we're going to succeed as a state, what we need to do is to have broad-based tax reform. We've got to go back and revisit this structure and simplify and fix the thing. If you like it, I'm game for that. Now look, I'm game for all sorts of conversations, but the conversation needs to happen. And that's what 126 is. Does the conversation need to happen or not? And I'll tell you what's going to happen if the answer is no. We don't want the conversation is. The very proper or very income tax that we just spent time suing to get off the ballot, that we fought tooth and nails, it's coming back, right? Like, I know those guys very well. It's gonna come back and they're gonna try to double the income tax, and that thing was polling at 75, 80%.
Well, I'm intimidated now.
I mean, I'm just telling you the reality, right? Like, it's gonna come and you're gonna fight this every cycle, over and over and over again. If that's the world you want,
Why would I
do it.
not want to have a battle I don't have to fight anymore?
On this one?
On the tax on services.
Okay.
This battle we don't fight anymore. You can't do it. Done. Yeah. Go to these and they go, oh, you got it. It's always.
You're
I gotta tell this story. You'll do this. This is good history for you.
That's good.
Freedom Phoenix, we promote a lot, and stuff. We used to do a lot of Goldwater Institute events. They would give me and Pal and Tiger, my IT guy and our senior editor and me, we get tickets, we get to go watch, the boys tell us how to live our freedom. Okay? The Laffer curve. He comes out and he tells, what you need is you need a lot of revenue streams, very little. That's where you get the most money out of everything. You need the service thing, you need this thing, you need taxes on air and water and freaking, sand, whatever the hell. That you get taxes, and if you make a little bit across the board, it's not worth a whole lot of effort to get rid of one of these while you got all this revenue coming in to go. And I asked him, I didn't really, in this supply side economics, voodoo economics, all this kind of crap you keep hearing about. Well, the Laffer curve is not the goal of keeping people get to keep their money. It's how to get the most money out of them. So my question was, I go, why are you trying to maximize the money to the government instead of maximizing what I get to keep? And he goes, well, so we can spend it. The Laffer curve, you keep talking about all this, well, you need low taxes, but this is exactly what I'm talking about, what you're doing. We need more revenue streams so we can lower this one, spread it out, and I guarantee the net income is going to be more than the government. That is your goal. And I'm going, who the hell are you people?
So hopefully after we win 126 and we're down at the Capitol advocating for a better tax structure, I'm going to haul you in and we're going to have you lobbying because you're going to say the same thing we're going to say. Right, you're going to be beaten down the door. That's great. That's the person we want. That's the conversation we want.
Dude, of all the states out there, how many states do not tax services?
I need to look again. The last I looked, it was like 26 or something like that.
26 do not?
No.
But the other, so half of them do.
Yeah, it's a fairly divided issue. And most states are in a hodgepodge system, right? Like, no, we won't tax groceries, or everybody has some weird exemptions on different aspects.
Yeah, real weird. I heard another person that's taking the same position as yours.
Yeah.
And what they were saying was, well, if we don't allow this, it for sure is just going to cause higher income tax rates because they're going to go to there. Do you concur with that thinking?
I mean, income and property are the two most likely that have the most broad appeal with the public. So I suspect
here's the thing. Because some people, we've been around here a long time. A lot of us have been around longer than others. But we've always seen one trajectory for taxes. Only one. Always, always, always up.
Yep.
And whatever they say, we're going to redo taxes, it goes up. We're going to look at Social Security. Well, we're going to change the rate, and we're also going to change the amount we can take. And then I actually heard Santorum say, this is right. He said at one point, the Social Security extension, it's so awful because it turns out we have all these people. Oh, no kidding. You have no report. I'm just saying the Social Security number 14, and I've been paying taxes for years since then.
Yep.
They know you're there, but it's a surprise. Oh my gosh, we have to change it all because we have all these people. No, it's because you guys screwed the Social Security system up, and you still are.
Yes.
And now it's so bad, we have people migrating here to take advantage of it while they're talking about lowering it for the people who paid for 45 years. And the people who make that decision only work for maybe 25 years, and they pay to get Social Security. It's insane.
It is.
So, do you think we're at some point going to get pissed off out here?
I think that happened a long time ago.
You know what I think is going to happen, your proposition? You're gonna not like the result of the way this voting's gone. That's going to be my guess. Because people like us are going, this is bull, man.
Yep.
It has got to be changed. And what Jose wrote a nice article, he just showed it to me. He's so right. proposition that says, your tax is all those little ones that Ernie was talking about, is going to be limited. It can only be this amount, this percentage of the gross national product, this percentage of the state product, not just whatever you want to get and spend.
Yeah.
That's what people are upset about.
Which we have that at a city level, for example, in the state, and nobody's abiding by it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you, but nobody listens to it.
Why would the state enforce the laws? They don't enforce immigration laws. They don't go after Hillary, who's one of the biggest criminals we know of, while they go after and spend millions on investigations of people who don't appear to have done anything. Now, do you think we're getting upset about that?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so there's a lot to be upset about as an ordinary American in this nation now.
Agreed.
I hope it expresses on Tuesday, because if it doesn't, it just shows how much trouble we are, really.
Is there, do you have a question?
I have more of a comment. It's kind of said, he who phrases the question wins the argument. And as far as the income tax and some of these other taxes go, we're always saying, well, what should the rate be? How much should it be? The real question should be, how much of your resources should you be allowed to keep? Should you be allowed to keep 13% of your income, or 90% of your income, or 100% of your income? How much of your time is your time, and how much of your time belongs to somebody else?
Yep.
And that's the way to do it. And say,
You're looking at me funny. I'm with you.
I understand. That's what I'm saying. What's so important about the way to put it. And I have a question about the annual financial reports, the second set of books that all the government political subdivisions keep. And Walter Burien is an expert on this, and I'm not. When Carol Springer was asked by Steve Porak at a meeting when she was running for treasurer, I think, about 20 years ago, he said he's heard that the amount of money in these secret funds, or these second funds that are offline, you might have changed the names, you might know about it. He said, generates enough revenue, 3 times the amount of revenue needed to run the state of Arizona. And she said, that's not true. She said, it's only twice as much. The point being is that here was someone who was very knowledgeable about the situation and the information, and yet, how many people outside this room have even ever heard of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report? And how much that 20 years ago, the Prescott School District got a big bond override of about $20 million, and they had $46 million in a special fund that they didn't even tell anybody about. So I don't know how to communicate this. I don't know how to write it. I don't know how to do any of this, but it's just that the collective ignorance, which I'm part of, I'm right at the top of it, is underwhelming in this country.
Well, come work with us. I'd love to go out in detail on that, because there's a lot we're trying to do that I think you'd like.
I want to amend what you said about phrasing the question. It's not about what we should be allowed to keep. It's what the government should be allowed to keep. Their argument goes all the way back to the beginning of the Bible. So we have to reformat how we think about this, because they have the power.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's right. Collective ignorance, I love that word.
I wrote it down.
Collective ignorance.
TV.
Hold on a second.
Can you speak up, sir? 6 years ago, they had us all buy new TVs because they changed the standard of broadcasting. Well, that new standard of broadcasting is in there because it hypnotizes people.
We can't hear you.
TV hypnotizes people now.
Yes.
And half the people still tune into CNN. And, well, they turn their TV on, Fox included. It's just bad news. And that's why we have our problems, because they're keeping us ignorant.
Yep.
I don't speak often, and I'm not very loud.
That's good. There's microphones for you.
Let me help. I don't speak often, and I'm not very loud. I want to give you a historical concept.
Get it up your mouth, I can't hear you, Mark.
Open my mouth. Yes, very good. Let me give you a historical context and a little let's see. I know a pastor in Seymour, Texas, who was a kind of a wild cowboy before he found the Lord and all that sort of thing. He told me, he said he had a friend in Oklahoma, and he
said, you gotta get in front of people and talk, if you have to talk, if you haven't hit oil in 15 minutes, quit drilling. Now, I'm gonna try to keep this real short. It's a contractual, it's a contextual thought. You know, the Crown of England, George III, had a revolution for the people. It came to that. Why? The Crown of England itself actually considered to be the notion of income tax to be regressive, because they said it interrupted the ability of people to have spendable income to promote commerce. The commerce would be where your profitability was, and so there didn't revenue at all. It should come from that, not from people's labor. Actually, he was overruled by his ministers or whatever. The consequence was that they wanted to basically double tax the colonists for the French and Indian War, and they weren't making any money in the colonies. They said, well, wait a minute, you're breaking our backs here. And for economic reasons, as well as social reasons, we ended up with a constitutional republic and parted with it. The king didn't want that to begin with. Sometimes the king doesn't want that to begin with, but you know, you get up with it anyway by the actions of other unknown others. All right. There's a context where I'm going here. We've had this argument before, which is to say, we started out with a country that was going to have basic revenues for its basic requirements for the people who would be sovereign citizens, and the sovereign citizens were the people who own property. Therefore, the basic commerce, it was from the basic commerce of the same as common law. Then it got to be where we had, you know, just general voting. Everybody could vote, instead of some people, fine. And we gave sovereignty to everybody, basically, and said, well, everybody has to have their fair share, and started raising it. Now we've got to a place at the other end of the spectrum. But you can't afford it anymore. We're where the colonists were to begin with. When I point out to people in Sun City West, older people, wherever they are, some of them have to make choices between food and pharmaceuticals. You've already impacted on the commerce to the place that the whole thing can fail, and people who get hungry, get afraid, people who get afraid, get violence and things, and then you have a revolution. Now, I will say this, Mr. Jefferson made a remark that the revolution was not what you think it is, the militants, at the end of it. The revolution was what happened that got you there. We've already had the revolution up to now. We're getting to a break point now. When you talk about these issues, it's overcomplication. I'm not this guy. I'm stupid. I don't get it. I really do. And anyway, my degree's in agribusiness, so I think about things with soybeans and pork bellies, honestly. The fact of the matter is, we have impacted commerce to the place with this other intrusion of authorities which are not really authorized by the Constitution. I think everybody in this room, whether it used to be Republicans, Democrats, or Communists, or whatever the hell it used to be, are pretty much Miller lawyers who have said, well, there's a lot of life experience here. You talk to guys here, a lot of life experience. And it's all about not doing what doesn't work, doing what does work, but just deciding what they do. We don't have a constitutional republic. I had a talk with a nice lady from the Democratic Party the other day, and she just wouldn't stop talking. And I said, you know the difference between communism and socialism? She said, she gave me some bullshit things. No, it's not. Socialism is an economic statement. Communism is
Well, if you're gonna keep talking, you better keep that microphone on.
It's over. Yeah, okay, you're right. You're a good man. You're a good man. All right. At any rate, what I suggested to her, and I'm suggesting to you is, we live in a socialist country now, where the government, directly or indirectly, controls 51% of the gross product of the country. In economic terms, socialism is an economic. The decisions that are being made now are about a little wide fork, which way we're going to go. And I don't like left or right or liberal or conservative. I don't like those handles. And I'll tell you why I don't like those handles. In just about the rest of the world, conservative is going back to something you already knew. Liberal is going to something you don't know. to try something new. They think of it sort of upside down the way we do. I just don't like the terms. Nevertheless, we have a wide fork in the road. Billy Bear said, we get to a wide fork, take it. All right, fine. Having said that, we're about to come to a turning place in the country to decide whether we dedicate to a socialist agenda permanently, or we don't. That's pretty simple.
Let's go up here.
Thank you for your time. This is not, I don't need that. I don't need that. In recent years, I've heard that the Koch brothers, Americans for Prosperity, have taken a real libertarian view about the war on drugs, not just marijuana, but the entire freaking debacle. However, most members of Americans for Prosperity that I need to talk to tend to be usually very conservative, usually evangelical Christians who think that even marijuana possession should have severe sanctions and penalties. I'd love your opinion on the contradiction there. And also, where does Americans for Prosperity stand on the wars? Not just Afghanistan and Iraq, which we're never going to get out of, but the other 40 wars around the world where we're supporting creeps who boil their opponents in oil and stuff. What's Americans for Prosperity's opinion on that stuff?
Yeah, no, so let me just give you a broad base. The Coke Network, I think, often gets misunderstood in everything. People look at what we do in education, think, you're privatization, or they look at drugs and think, you're just wild legalization. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create a society of mutual benefit where people get along or advance in society by helping others. And so when we look at every policy position, what we're looking for is win-win scenarios. What creates a win-win scenario for everybody involved? And it doesn't matter which area of policy we're going to go after, we're going to look for whatever creates a society of mutual benefit. And so when we look at wars, I think there's a lot of times where the interventions we get involved in help us at the detriment of others, or isn't clearly there. I think we're not going to say anything that shocks you when we say we're in a lot of countries we don't belong being in. And you'll see us be a lot more assertive over the coming years on those kind of stances. And coming back to 126, it's the same reason we're here. Is we want a society of mutual benefit. We see an economy that is rigged across the board. All sorts of people are getting tax exemptions, subsidies, et cetera, That's not a win-win scenario for the taxpayer and for everybody else, right? That's a win for a corporation at the expense of the taxpayer. We don't want that. We want win-win scenarios as often as we can.
But does Americans for Prosperity take an official stand just on Iraq and Afghanistan, which have gone on lately?
We've been really vocally critical of both endeavors. I think you'll see us within the next 2 months start making a call for some changes in one or both fields.
Why in 2 months as opposed to 2 months ago before the election?
Well, I mean, for 10 years we've said these are wars that we're not getting any profit out of, and we ought to be bringing our kids home. I don't know how much more clear you want than that, but that's what we were going to throw right now.
Thank you.
This is, I want to, before you're done, I want to jump into the buzz.
I did, I love this. I'll stay here all day.
But I want to give you an opportunity, because I want to hear it, and have you come on the radio show. You can tell me all about it, okay? What I want to know is your advocacy in Arizona on these types of, we know Tom, Denny, we know the guys at Coldwater, we know, a lot of us go to the discussion groups, I get it, okay? But I need to know what you're going to be advocating going into the 2020 election cycle. Is that what you're doing, the legislature that comes in, do all the Trump thing, everybody got Trump now, so here we go, we're going to deal with whatever we can out of the legislature. So you're advocating for less of a tax burden, a directed tax burden, more money in the pocketbook, spread it out, this Laffer thing. I haven't got a clear vision of what it is you guys should be doing at the legislature.
I mean, I have my own personal desires that I'd love to see.
It doesn't matter, man.
Right?
I'd love to spend money on it.
I'd love to see us kill the income tax through tax reform. That's what I would like to see. But I think I want to see the conversation happen. And And there are multiple alternatives I think would be positive and create win-win scenarios, but I think that's a conversation worth having.
Last question. I'd like to comment on his socialism. He says we're at a turning point. We went way past that. We're socialists now, and all your people are advocating, are we just fine-tuning socialism? Is that all we're about anymore?
I think that's a great question, and we could, should, would, and for us, we are advocating wholesale changes of the system. And we understand and acknowledge that, as you said, change scares people, right? Change of all kinds scares people. And so change in the direction of more freedom and more free markets is also going to scare people. And that takes a lot of time. And that's why we hope you all come work with us and work to talk to the general populace about why our way of thinking is better.
What is your way of thinking?
I mean, I don't want to overstate Michael, sure, but libertarian tends to be more of what we're associated with.
Tying in with this idea here, it used to be the government was government, private enterprise was the marketing, the socialism are mixing the two together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is a no-no.
No, it's a total no-no. And this is why I keep harping on kind of the corporate welfare, the rigged economy that we have going on. And it's why I view 126 as, again, part of the problem. The government has no business in saying, this company is better than that company.
Right.
The city of Gilbert is telling GoDaddy, come to Gilbert, we won't have you pay any taxes, and we'll provide you with $10 million of training. I think that's BS, right? GoDaddy's fine. What we want is not a situation where the government says GoDaddy is more valuable than Google and is more valuable than Apple than anybody else. But our state and our cities are plagued with picking winners and losers. And I know you guys may not agree with it, but I think picking services over goods in the economy is just symptomatic of this whole approach that says some businesses are worth more to the government than others.
Labor, when you say services, you mean labor versus
Manufacturing.
profit because you're adding to the economy when you produce something?
If I sell you a piece of flooring as opposed to selling you legal advice, why is one worth more to the government than the other? I think the government ought to treat them both the
The government has
same.
an interest in what's worth more to it because it's what's benefit to us that are paying the bill.
And I think the benefit ought to be to the business owner, that the government ought to treat every business owner the same way, right? It shouldn't say, Michael should pay 10% in sales tax, but Jose ought to pay 5%.
Well, no, they don't. When you produce something, there's a difference between producing something and increasing its value versus human effort.
I mean, I could boil it down like, if you want to protect lawyers, knock yourself out, you know?
One comment, the last comment here is the Tom Steyer, Bloomberg, and these other really wealthy funding the left, they could put the money that the Koch brothers put in their pocket and not even notice it. The Koch brothers have a very, very small, in the scheme of things, financial impact on everything. Now, if someone else has any other different information on it, I'd certainly like to know it. But everything that I've ever found out about it is that in the scheme of things, it's pretty inconsequential compared to like, say, Tom Steyer or Michael Bloomberg. It's just that the Koch brothers are more transparent about it than Bloomberg is or than Tom Steyer is. They're right out front with it. And now, if somebody else has other information that's better than that, I'd certainly be open to it, but that's all I can find is the transparency factor. Everything the Koch brothers does is out front.
We do try to be upfront, and I think, look, I know people don't like spending and they think it's bad. I think it's good that we have robust conversations. You'll hear about 127. We have an approach that says the free market approach to energy is the better approach. The Tom Steyer guys have an approach that says solar is the better approach by government fiat. Okay, I think we're going to win that argument by resounding margin because we spent a lot of time and money going back and beating that back. But I'm glad we had the debate because we can take that debate and have it over and over again in different sectors of the economy. That debate, even though that proposal is bad, the debate is good. And the more debate, the more speech we have, the better. So I'm not afraid of that money from either side coming in. I think we ought to encourage more discussion. It's how we'll have a better society rather than less.
We did debate between both parties, libertarians, Democrats, and Republicans. But they are kind of needed sparingly. Their voice.
Most business owners do, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I grew up, yeah, I grew up in a corporate world. We certainly pushed it around. I think that's
Whoever wins, we don't.
Look, and this is, again, not to go too crazy on free speech, but this is where a lot of people beat up on Citizens United, and I hope people will come out and defend it harder, because what Citizens United has done is give more money to people who care about issues rather than politicians, and I think that's a good thing. If you're the NRA and you're the Second Amendment, you don't support any politician who supports the Second Amendment, and you shouldn't give a dang what their title is or who they belong to. And it's the same way. If you support free markets, you gotta support free markets across the border, free society. Don't care whether they're Republican or Democrat. It's about what's right and what's wrong, and it's about supporting good policy. So again, I think where the country is heading with more spending on issues is a better place than where we've been. Again, more freedom usually results in good things. Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for letting me do it.
And to save time, our Vice Mayor of Scottsdale, Phillips. Flip this in. See more work from the past.
Does that work? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay, so I was kind of scared to come up here after that conversation. You know, and I'm a city councilman from Scottsdale, so it's strange for me to represent the whole state on an issue. But I did kind of jump into this one because I feel like you do, we're all citizens, that we're being had. And Proposition 127 is definitely we're being had. And looking into it, what I found out was, you know, this isn't about clean energy and renewable energy and why doesn't Arizona have more solar and all that. What this is really about is cap and trade.
Go ahead.
Keep on talking. So, we all got this, right? What's on my ballot? So, when I got this in the mail, I read through this thing for 127, and that's when I wrote a couple articles and sent them to the paper about it. Because when you read this thing, you really understand what 127 is all about. I mean, it starts out in Section 2, number 3. They list the conventional energy resource means an energy resource that is non-renewable in nature, such as natural gas, coal, and uranium or electricity. Renewable energy resource means an energy resource that is replaced rapidly by a natural ongoing process. It is not municipal solid waste combustion, trees larger than 12 inches in diameter, nuclear or fossil fuel. So right there, they've eliminated nuclear. Where do we get most of our power from? Palo Verde. Tom Steyer knows this. This Prop 127 came from Tom Steyer, who we all know is a billionaire from California. He started out as a utility regulator, made his money, got into renewable sources of energy. Why did he do that? Because he loves renewable sources, he loves clean air, he loves the, nature and all this. No, he did that because when you buy into all that and you have enough renewable energy, you can sell it back. This is cap and trade. And for those people that can't get that power, they have to buy from him. So this is all about him making money.
Yes.
So if you keep on going here, in number 4, it even says, 1 renewable energy credit shall be created for each kilowatt derived from an eligible renewable energy source, including distributed renewable energy resources. So what they're talking about is, let's say 127 passed. Is APS going to start building solar farms and windmills and all this? No. What they're going to do is they're going to find out how many kilowatts they need to cover that. They're going to buy them from Steyer. He's going to make a lot of money, and they're going to raise our rates to pay for it. That's cap and trade. That's carbon tax credits. That's what this is all about. In Section D, each affected utility shall be required to satisfy an annual renewable energy requirement by obtaining renewable energy credits from eligible renewable energy resources. It says it right there. I mean, it's in black and white in this paper. This is what it's all about. It's carbon tax credits. Each affected utility, APS, you know, when they say each affected utility, we think of APS, but there's little utilities in Flagstaff and Prescott and Winslow, all these, they all have to do it. And it put these little guys out of business because they can't afford to buy carbon tax credits. Okay, each affected utility shall be required to satisfy an annual distributed renewable energy requirement by obtaining distributed renewable energy credits from distributed renewable energy resources. This is Steyer. So this is what he's doing. It's not just Arizona. He did it. He's doing it in Nevada, and I think Oklahoma and maybe some other states. So he's going around the country doing this because if he can get this mandate in, then these big energy companies who know they can't do this, and they're not even going to try. What they're going to do is just, okay, at the end of the year, they'll say, well, we need to buy 10,000 kilowatts of renewable credits. They'll buy them from Steyer. They'll make $1 billion. It'll be passed on to us, the consumer. This is why APS says our electric rates will go up $1,000 a year. They're not saying because they're going to be building all this stuff. They're saying because they're going to be buying these carbon credits. So 127 is the introduction of cap and trade to Arizona. It's the worst possible thing that can happen. I don't know if it's going to keep coming every year until finally they convince us. Because it sounds so good. You know, when we first came here, it sounds like, oh yeah, why don't we have renewable sources? Look at Arizona, we have all this sun. Why aren't we using that? And yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but we're not really using it, and they don't really care about that. That's not the point. The point is buying the carbon credits. You know, if you could convince them to say, okay, we don't want to buy the carbon credits, we're going to build solar farms, and we're going to build windmills and all this stuff, that would be great. But that costs more than the carbon credits. So it's easier to buy the carbon credits and continue to do the renewable resources. I saw an article this morning. People that have paper and pencil, you should write this down. It's an article from Larry Belt from Forbes magazine. It's called Blood and Gore. It's making a killing on anti-carbon investment hype. This is Tom Steyer, George Soros, and Al Gore. These guys are making billions of dollars off of these carbon credits. So for me, you know, 127, that's what it's all about. It's cap and trade for Arizona. We can't have that thing, you know. Arizona, we do have a lot of renewable resources, and we're working towards that goal. We have a goal by 2030, but we have to do it our way. We have to do it slowly. We don't want to have a jump of $1,000 a year in your electric bill. Because people with fixed incomes, they can't afford that kind of stuff. So Arizona is Arizona. Let's do it our way. And that's what I'm saying.
Easy question.
Please.
It's my understanding, because I don't really study anything goes, but it's my understanding that this renewable energy, it's not economically sound, it's all subsidized by governments, and so the people behind the scenes we mentioned, they get rich and we get paid the bill for it, but it's not economically feasible, it's my understanding.
No, it's not. And in fact, most windmills, of the windmill generating, they only generate 14% of what they say they're supposed to do when they build it. And then the cost of building it is ridiculous. And then the metals used to do it. And then, you know, when they talk about renewable, especially now they're talking about the batteries. You know, the batteries is worse environmentally than anything else you're using. And it's just ridiculous. But it's never about that. It's not really about let's have clean energy. It's really about if you can make clean energy and create 2 kilowatts and you only need 1, you can sell the other one. And that's where the money's made. And that's all these people care about. It's sad to say because, yeah, you want this clean energy and we should be doing this kind of thing. But, you know, with the government subsidy and this game they're playing, it doesn't work like that. Sure.
The Granite Ridge Senior Center has a very large picture of Obama still up. Why? I mean, they call it art. I call it propaganda. Why is it still there?
You know, this is just City of Scottsdale here. But we give $8 million a year to Scottsdale Arts, One of their groups under their umbrella is Public Art. Public Art, we contracted these people.
Why is
I'm telling you why.
there a picture of Trump in that building?
Public Art is the one that picks out the public art. City Council doesn't do it, and we don't get to vote on it. So they put that stuff up there, and I don't like it either. But, you know, they go along with art is art, and what you might not like, someone else might like, so.
No, nobody likes it.
I don't like it either, I agree with you.
Take some red paint.
It's my understanding the U.S. Constitution says useful arts. Useful arts, is there any way to make a decision, come in on the idea that that's in the category of useful arts?
I don't know, useful arts, you know.
It has art in the Constitution.
Yeah, useful arts.
You gotta show me that one, man.
Another point is they're gonna make there was a wall somewhere downtown Scottsdale, they're gonna put a big picture of John McCain. Everybody's outraged about that, so now we got Obama and John McCain. It's like, you know, what's next? I mean,
My hero.
Freeway box.
Sarah.
Let me background this just a little bit, because you won't understand if I don't. I took a course, a seminar put on by a professor emeritus in engineering named John Yellett from ASU back in 1973. Back in 1973, I'm sorry, I took a course at the insistence of my grandfather, who was a naval engineer. And it was about energy and energy distribution in the future. It's in 1973. He made a comment, several comments that I remember very distinctly. One of them was that people having independence over their energy would get political independence in the long run. That was one of his premises. He also, I remember he said, you realize that 40% of your power bill goes to reheat water you never use, because the thermocouple just keeps reheating it for you to go take that bath in the evening. He said if you went to alternate systems, you see, you wouldn't be running it through the meter. Solar put in not long ago, last year, and he said, I can't afford to put this array in here, but they've made it so that I can. And it all goes through the meter. That's the point. They'll buy the excessive power from him at a lesser amount, sell it to somebody at more. They're going to make the money, and the key is the meter. It's all about the meter. So they're playing this game too. They're very much in on the game. My son works for Tucson Electric, by the way. He thinks it's screwed. I mean, he really does. And energy independence is also economic independence. Is also political independence. If individuals, my friend over here, Alan, wherever the hell he went, is putting together a solar system himself because he can, and cost effectively. But most people it's out of their reach, out of their technical reach. It's a simple thing. It's a systemic problem. The only way that they created a system is counter to people's freedom to exercise their freedom.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who lives on about 32nd Street in Greenway. He put his own solar collector in, like you're talking about. He did it himself, which to me is amazing. I don't think I could do it. Cost him about $50,000. Took him 3 years, all kinds of going through all this government regulation. But basically, he's off the grid now. I mean, if Americans can do that, and everybody does that, hey, you got your own free energy. That's pretty cool. You know? But most of it, unfortunately, is people have all the solar panels on the roof. We're paying for it, you know, because they produce more electricity than they need at a certain time. It's only when the sun is shining. Later on, they're using APS, so it comes back to them. But back and forth, we're the ones that pay for that subsidy. So to me, I don't like it at all until there's a company, private company, that come out there and say, I'll sell you the solar product and go up on your roof. Remember when we had when satellite first came out? Your backyard, you had this giant dish the size of your backyard. Now they're little dishes. Someday solar is going to be like that. It won't be a panel across your whole roof. It'll be a little square, and it'll power your house. That's when solar is going to work. That's when you're going to be able to buy that system. You can run it yourself. How the utilities are going to try to stop you is the other story, because it's just like gasoline. You know, gas goes up. You know, a car today, you should get 100 miles to a gallon easy. But it doesn't, because gas goes with the car. You know, the oil companies go with the car. The more mileage it gets, the higher the car costs, because they want to keep that same number the same.
There's let me make about 3 quick points. One point is you'll never get it down to a small square on your roof. It takes literally most of your roof to capture enough solar energy.
Say that now.
This is the fundamental of physics. So let me just go with that idea.
Never say never.
But the second thing I would say is I kind of learned the details on solar energy because I have covered my roof with solar energy with my own installation. So I had the technical ability and reason it all through to do it and build it. So I can afford it. The thing that I discovered in doing all that, researching the field and figuring out the economics and looking at alternative energy in a variety of ways, is that I became pretty convinced, I'm very convinced now, is that we have got to move broadly against all subsidies that are provided directly or indirectly through the tax code. They should all be scratched out of the tax code because it fundamentally is distorting the entire American economy. I mean, and the ramifications of it, when you begin to trace through how all of this ripples from one industry to another industry to the goods prices and so forth, it's very complex, but it's pervasive, and it needs to, the only way we're going to get back to a rational energy policy is to get rid of all that crap. That's the fundamental. And so you're absolutely right about this 127. Don't let anybody legislate anything in terms of energy consumption or tax codes or subsidies or any of this. We've got to get this back to a free market economy. We absolutely must. Now, the third point I'd like to make is the big breakthrough is going to be batteries. And I'm sure Ernie will be able to add something on. This is one of his hobbies. I've been reading a lot of his articles that he passes through the Phoenix Freeman and other sources. Batteries. I don't have batteries in my solar system because it was not cost effective to do it. I'd much rather use APS as my battery. So I can call it. Well, really, it's a very cheap way to do it. Yeah. So that's the big thing to look for, and I better shut up and let somebody else speak.
Well, maybe I shouldn't throw this out there, but I'm a big nuclear proponent, so.
Just 2
I think
seconds.
you can get a lot of energy out of a nuclear power plant.
I think it sounds like we're all in agreement on this situation, but just...
Just 2 sentences. One is there looks like there should have been a hashtag 127 stop stire stealing. And the other sentence is everybody should read the book The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels.
This is to help us squirm a little bit here. It's my understanding Scottsdale had some police officers that killed 8 people. The last one I remember shot a grandfather, about 43-year-old, walking into his house and back of his head that was carrying a 2-year-old. Is that still in the way of the city of Scottsdale, wherever that guy is?
I don't know that, and I don't want to talk about
murdered.
that. Yeah.
Does that let you squirm a little bit?
Well,
No.
when it gets in the legal department, I'm supposed to shut up, so.
I'm not saying.
Libertarian?
In 1994, we did a series of initiatives. One of them was solar buyback. And we did it just, if we were legislators, look what we do. A lot of those became law. What I proposed in there as a 30-year-old didn't know any better, is I go, if I generate electricity on my home and I give it to APS and I get paid 1/3 of what they charge me, I'm thinking they'd probably make some profit with 2/3. I'm like, peace out, go take you didn't have to make it, you're just distributing, you get the money, what do I care? Well, of course, then they go, well, we're your battery, we're storing, you should pay for it. Yeah, I just did, you get 2/3 of it, or whatever. So then it started, the economics, of this, and we're talking about it. And then I started to understand it's the Corporation Commission. Corporation Commission is the Monopoly Protection Department of whatever the hell for them. So solar to me was not about, how expensive it was or how much more efficient. It was, I get to have a decentralized power source for my car, for my house, and when the grid goes down, screw them, I can do it all. If you don't have your battery system, you're tied into the grid, when the power goes out, your solar doesn't work. You're not allowed to have your solar work on your home when the power's out. But what kind of BS is that? Well, it'll charge the set. What, there's not an inverter or a flip-off switch, or you can check. I mean, it's all BS. So if you want to talk about solar power, it's an independent, freeing kind of thing, and whatever I'm willing to pay for it, I'll pay. The problem is that we have this corporation commission that's a monopoly protection racket. Arizona Public Service, which is supposed to be regulated, when we started the state, that was part of Power Arizona, and it's become this monopolizing thing, eliminating competition. So that's where the problem is. Everything SRP and APS and what they're going to do and how much I don't care. Let them do whatever the hell they want. I want the freedom to be able to do what I want and sell my excess electricity with a freaking extension cord to my neighbor. You can put up a neighborhood, but I got 2 acres. You know,
Technically, you should be able to do that. You know, like I said.
Get on it, man, let's do it. I'm out vocal.
Well, like I said, my friend's got his own power and he runs off it, so.
To his neighbor?
No, he doesn't run it to his neighbor.
No, I mean,
But
as
it's-
soon as my neighbor, my 2 acres, I put up solar panels and sell electricity to my next door neighbor, then we're free. Until then, all this is BS.
You can incorporate, become a corporation.
Oh, of course, that corporation commission just get right on
And then
it.
and then you sell electricity to your neighborhood if that's what you want to do. I think that's what we should be able to do. I mean, you gotta buck the system. I mean, that's what we gotta start doing.
So you're advocating that in my neighborhood, I should just create my own little solar thing and try and go through the process of being able to sell electricity to my neighbors.
I'm saying that's the way free enterprise is. That's what.
With government permission. I gotta have government permission.
No, I'm not saying government permission.
Well, I mean, corporation commission, the only way that I'm gonna be able to sell electricity that I'm generating surplus to my next door neighbor is with permission of somebody. And this corporation, you say, yeah, do a corporation, go and I'm a libertarian, I'm going, how about I know?
Well, if you don't, I'm not sure the legal ramifications of that.
Oh, okay.
But,
All right.
you know, government is government. But,
You understand my point, though, right?
Yes, I do.
We're not in a free market.
right, but I can't do anything about that today. So all we can do is have that discussion and say, we should be able to not subsidize all these solar companies. We should be able to, like I said, have your own private company, be able to sell it.
Yeah, I don't want a subsidy, I just want you to get out of the way.
Yeah. And if every company wants to start to do that, go for it.
Over here, please. I just want to mention one point of order. We have a speaker talking about 126, and I want to hear your whole story.
127.
First, and then open it up for 127, then open it up for questions, and then I'd like to, establish that. I want to hear what you have to say first.
Yeah, that was basically
Are you
it.
finished?
That was basically it. This is all Tom
What is your
Steiner's.
position? You're opposed?
I'm opposed to 127 because it's cap and trade for Arizona. We don't need that here. We don't need you giving Steiner money. And stay out of it. Let's Arizona go in our own direction.
Can I say one thing out real quick? We focus here on APS and SRPs. We live in the valley, that's where they are. There's what, 15, 16 other smaller power companies in the state?
Easily.
Maybe more, I can't remember the number on it. But they have a tremendous infrastructure capitalization. And in my opinion, and I've got a place out in the rural area, you can't run a household today on solar, on straight solar. You can try, but
Well,
I hear
the
these,
battery backup is.
I hear these things, and there's a few people that can do it. I agree, there's people that are technologically able to do it. I'm fairly well at it, I can't do it. I know how to do it, I've got a part of it set up. They used to have air motors, they generate 24, 36 volts, so they could run the lights in the summertime to milk the cows with. They're all good on a micro scale. But on a macro scale, you still have this grid. You still have this grid with a tremendous overhead. My little place up on the Upper Red Lake, 25 or 30 or 40 years ago, whatever it is, I got it. The service charge to keep Beltrán Electric, to keep power to it, was like $3 a month. It's $40 a month now because the infrastructure is still there, and they get most of their power from North Dakota, from the Garrison conversions from Northern States Park. I sort of understand this grid thing a little bit, and up where I'm at, there's a lot of windmills, and they did people get tons of money to put windmills up. And like you say, the guy making the money is Tom Steyer on it, and the landowner with the lease, they get as much as $10,000 a year for, a couple square feet of land to put 400 tons of concrete in the ground and put up a 200-foot tower. And there's a lot of myths to this thing, in my opinion, which doesn't mean much because he's a lot smarter than I am on this stuff. Now, I can run my farm off of a windmill, a small windmill that's about 30 feet high. But there's a lot of stuff I can't do with it. I couldn't run machines with it, I couldn't run a drill press with it, I can't run a lot of things even with the inverters that I have.
And that's a good point too, is that you gotta remember all these little rural towns all across Arizona, up north and down south, we pay for all of that because APS has to provide power to everybody. And they can't be charging them $10,000 a day for electricity to run a power line, 50 miles up to this little ranch out in the middle of nowhere. So we subsidize those people. We actually pay for everybody to have power. And by we, it's APS. And then, so this is APS's argument is that this is our infrastructure. We built this for everybody. And now you want to use our infrastructure and you want us to pay you back.
Can we have competing infrastructure? Can you go, anybody that generates, you got somebody who wants to buy a piece out, because they get eminent domain or whatever concession to have that line. I'm going, well, can I run a line? What if I have my own little ranchers and it goes down? See, that's where they're killing us. They are eliminating competition. It's what always happens with this kind of stuff. And for our benefit, it's our thing, and screw all that, keep it. We'll decentralize and go our own. I want to know if you advocate for that. I want to know if you'll say it. People should be free to sell power to whomever they want, as long as they do it on their private, don't mess with APS and screw them. See my point?
I see your point. Good luck getting that passed. Arizona
has to ask if you support freedom of your elected power, right?
Of course they do.
All right.
Yeah, but Arizona, unfortunately, is a monopolistic state, and that's why we have a corporation commission, because they're there to regulate the monopoly. I mean, that's the way it is. If you want to deregulate, I think the scary thing about that is it allows people like from California to come into Arizona, and then you're going to get some companies that are bad. You're going to be using APS's infrastructure. Your power is not going to work for whatever reason. You're not going to have anybody to call to fix it. It'll be a giant mess.
I'm decentralization, not even using their infrastructure. I want my own infrastructure. I want my own satellite internet. Don't need their damn cable.
Well, we can have 320 million little cities all by themselves. Everybody's does themselves and runs their own little world.
Freedom's the answer. What's the question? If anyone does, I'll do it.
Yeah. But sooner or later, you're going to have to use somebody's service.
I'll keep it short, real quick. My son again, Tucson Electric. Sorry, about Tucson Electric. He told me an awful lot of things that happened there. So like 8 guys that put all these pieces of equipment together, and they're huge. And if something goes down, an unplanned outage, they get their power from as far away as Canada, for God's sakes. The grid is all over the country.
It's amazing.
Wherever they have to hit the switches and get it from, they buy it from here and they trade it. But so California, does California use our bumfuck Nevada or wherever it is, it doesn't matter. They'll get the power from somewhere that we generated, and you'll use it somewhere else. A major part of Palo Verde's power goes to California. There's all those turbine units that are along the El Paso gas line going to California. They all are built by California corporations using our water to create power for California off of a gas line that runs through us from Texas. Okay, fine. It's all integrated that way. Tucson Electric was bought a couple of years ago, 3 years ago maybe, as part of a deal with some other providers by a New Zealand conglomerate. So it's international, it's not just national. But the corporations are into it because they're the locus from which they do the billing, and they do the billing through the meter. They do the billing, everything's billed through the meter, that's fine. They're the keepers of the meter. Therefore, they're going to pay these people for however the power exchange is going to be. It's a very incestuous kind of business. Now, one other thing I was going to say about Yellen, Dr. Yellen. One thing he mentioned then was that in '73, all the patents that had been bought up about this solar or alternate energy had been bought by NASA, and they had run out. And went for 20 years, they had run out at the time. He said it would be possible at the time to build solar cells, fairly low-yield solar cells, in a typical backyard shop with kilns or whatever, cost-effectively, for a little more than the cost at the time of a roof. That if you changed the system of your house and went away from 120 to 220, 110 to 220, and went to he was talking about LCDs and not LSD, but the other ones, the good stuff. Yeah, okay. At any rate, that if you cut your power need and increase your power capability, that you could get within the range. The only problem at the time of 73, yes, was batteries. Now they've done way ahead now to get batteries that are just unbelievable. It could be done now. You can have your basic needs. You might still be on the grid and still need subsidy power, but it would be very little. And as I say, if you just get rid of your water heater, for God's sakes, and get a heating as it goes, like in a hotel, you're not going to have 40% of your power bill. All of a sudden, what do they do with corporations? Because a major part of their income is systemic. Now, nuclear, the last comment I'm going to make. I had a friend who was a chemistry professor at college, and he made the comment to me. He'd been in physics before, but he got zapped in cyclotron. He couldn't take any more rats, so he went into chemistry. That was fine. He said, you know what the big problem with nuclear is? He said, if you take all the BTUs that it takes, all the calories that it takes to dig the iron, make the steel for rebar or equipment, Bay City cranes, bulldozers, or whatever, and you figured out how many trucks it took, how many cranes it took, whatever that you used up to build that facility, and poured the cement, and all the rest of it that goes in it. The NRC original rules was 25 years, tear it down, build a new one. Now, nobody's done that. Everybody just keeps rebuilding from the inside. Their safety is a problem. It's not an impossible problem, but it is problematic. But he said the problem is, if you figure out all that it costs to build one of those, they only produce a little more power than it took to build them to begin with, including tearing them down, build another one. And it's not cost effective in the long run.
Yeah, I'd have to argue that point. But, the one funny thing about our ATS nuclear power plant is, California doesn't want nuclear power, but they take our nuclear power and send it over there. I think that's hilarious. Another point is, if you didn't know, is you know who the largest electric user is in Arizona? Central Arizona Project.
I have this about the nuclear. I just read in an article just recently. The waste is where they're making their money. They have totally scared us that the waste, they're banking it away in these facilities underground because in the future it's going to be worth billions and trillions.
Yeah, possibility. So how many here are from Scottsdale? 2? 3? 4, maybe? Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, please vote yes on 420 in question 1. The rest of you, God bless you.
All right. We have one more speaker. Mr. Tim Horn?
Yes. All right, it's time to dig up some dirt and splice the room with it. Because we're going to talk about some stuff that I know you want to talk about. Because this group wants to talk about... Except squeals. You got it? I got it. Okay. So, okay, good. Thank you. Thanks, Derek. So, Guy, thanks. Guy is our vice mayor and a good friend, and we're both in the same legislative district, LD 23. That's Rio Verde, Scottsdale, mostly that, and Fountain Hills. So
How many people in here are Republicans? It's okay. I mean, Ernie's not asking, I am, come on. How many people are Republicans in here? Okay. How many people in here are state committeemen? How many people know what a state committeeman is? I know Jose does, you can answer. Okay, so I'm gonna explain a couple of things to the Republicans in the room, and we're gonna talk about some other issues too. What?
You asked how many in here are non-voters?
How many in here are non-voters?
I voted signs.
Okay, so how many in here are voters? How many are going to vote in this election or have already? Ernie raised his hand. I'm confused. Okay. You are going to vote?
I voted in the primary for the Libertarians, and that's all I did.
Okay. All right, so in this election, not the primary, this is another very important election. Now, you know it's a toss-up. We don't know what's going to happen. But it's a BFD. It is a big deal. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I'm going to talk a little bit beyond the election. I'm going to talk about the Republican Party because there's another election coming. And it's going to be different than in the past. A lot of people that are Republicans, like me, know, and I joined the Republican Party to change it. That's why I joined. I started on the left, then I was an independent, and then I became a Republican because I got wiser, and I wanted to have an effect, and I started working party stuff. I worked with John Kasich and I were Young Republicans together in Ohio. So, yes, I go back that far. John was a little ahead of me, but he was on the Board of Trustees while I was still in the club, and then I went to the Board of Trustees. But I liked being a Republican, and now I'm in the party to change it. And I wrote this book, and Terry hasn't started reading it yet, but he bought it from me the last time I was here. It's called Ruling the Elite. And in this book, I talk about the fact that we've got some changes that need to be made in our country. And I looked at it and said, well, the most logical way to do this is to get the Republican Party to change and make it change and thus affect the system. So with that in mind, I then became a Republican. I started working in the Republican Party. Now I'm first vice chair of the largest district in the state, LD 23. I've been a state delegate. I was an alternate delegate to the National Convention. I am a state committeeman, precinct captain, on and on and on. I talk it, I write it, I go out and talk about the national popular vote in opposition to that. And I know a lot of Republicans, and it's my reference group. But now comes the next step, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. And Guy doesn't know about this either. So every 2 years, we have an election. And we determine who's going to run the party. The chairman is elected. Also, the treasurer is elected and the secretary. In alternate years, we have lesser officers that are elected. So the election this January is going to determine who the chairman of our party is. The chairman normally, you'd think, kind of is the vision of the party, like the President of the United States would be. But unfortunately, for a long time, many years now, that has really been run by one man who recently passed away. The party's been run by McCain. The party structure was run by McCain. What they had on you, who they're willing to give money to, who the donors were connected with, that's been a problem. And so people like us, and I put Guy in that category, we're more non-establishment Republicans. So we come from the Tea Party side of the party. So there are two sides of the party. Does most Republicans and others recognize that? What are the two sides? What would you say the two sides are?
Party and neocons.
The neocons?
The Tea Party versus the neocons.
Neocons. And I call them the establishment and the non-establishment. But by whatever name, those are the two parts. And so I was very active as a Tea Party person, as I'm sure a lot of you were. And I was out there screaming, yelling, trying to push things and make changes. And you know, the biggest thing we got done, and we should all be proud of it, if you haven't heard this before, you haven't heard me say it, is there is no Trump movement. That doesn't exist. There's a Tea Party movement that got going, and Donald Trump was smart enough and had money enough and success enough that, let's just say he's in Trump Tower, hey, there's a parade going by. It's the Tea Party. I think I can get in front of that parade. And I thank God every day he did, because we needed that leadership. We needed that central focus, and he was the guy to do it. So he has elevated what we wanted as Tea Party people into a place that the Republican Party can't deny. And he's helped make parts of it the platform change. There's going to be more. So this is all good stuff. But now we've got to get more, and you see the resistance to him inside our party. McConnell, gee, look what our House Speaker just came out with. Here, Donald Trump takes an initiative that most of us know has to happen. We've got to change this birthright citizenship thing. It's one of the more stupid things that we do in America. But it's not stupid. It's very pro-Democrat, if you want it. More Democrats born every day, illegally. And the bad thing is, for most Americans, whoever is doing it, and it's mostly illegals, but it affects us. It affects our pocketbook. Millions of dollars are spent each year for this. And the bill keeps coming. And there's no end in sight. And so what happens, Trump brings it up, right? He said he would. Do you remember that? That was one of his campaign promises. He said he would, he did. And immediately the Speaker of the House says, oh, no, that can't be done. That's totally wrong. That's unconstitutional. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were on justice. You know, but we do know he's against Trump. The Speaker of the House, a Republican, has worked diligently to fight the non-establishment people like us. And the same has happened here in our state. So, there's been calls for me over the last 2 years to replace Jonathan Lyons, who is the hand-picked guy of Robert Graham, who is the hand-picked guy of McCain. And I've told people, I said, there's no use in trying to overthrow it. What they've done is made it so hard, we can't win. We can put up a big fight, but we can't win. We can't win in an interim election. We have to wait until the next election. And so there were 2 throws of that came up, and I put it down. I told people, and some people got mad about it. I understand, but don't fight the war. You know, you got strategy, right? Everybody knows strategy and tactics. If you don't know strategy is putting yourself in an advantageous position to win in the conflict. Tactics are how you use the assets to execute the strategy. Okay, that's what you do. So the strategy hasn't been there. But now is the time to go after that strategy. And that's what we're introducing now as we head into this election. So, what I come up with is an idea. I think time has come, not only in our state, but in others. So let me ask you these questions, because you're absolutely the first group that has heard what I'm about to tell you. Almost nobody knows this. I mean, some politicians I've talked to make sure we can get the right backing and so forth. But that's it. I've asked them not to say anything. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to expose it to people here today, because really I think this is the Republican group. Of all Republican groups I've been in front of, man, there's a lot of knowledge in this room. You guys study the matter. You've got libertarians in your group challenging you all the time. And you're there beating on people too. And you know, and so this is you're a solid group because of it. These guys make you even better Republicans than most, because you're made to think about a lot of stuff. So I think it's here today. So let me ask you these questions. What if our party, talking about Republicans, our party was a group of activists and we didn't have sides? Think about that for a second.
Didn't have what?
Didn't have sides. We didn't have establishment and non-establishment. Think about that. What if our party was transparent to all state committeemen, PCs, and others involved in its governance? Transparency is good. What if we all believed ourselves to be equal in the eyes of the administration of the party? Because right now it's not. Anybody that's not an established Republican, you're left out, your invitations don't come to you. My party chairman, who I work with, didn't get an invitation recently. And she's the biggest, the biggest LD that we have. She's chairperson, and she didn't get an invitation to come to meeting of all the party chairmen. Right, that's what we face all the time. What if donors saw us as a cohesive group, all moving towards the same goals? That would be a good thing. Well, wouldn't it be better, and wouldn't it be likely that we'd be more successful against Democrats if we worked in such a way? Of course, I think it would be. But is it possible? How do we do it? Could it be done And so what I'm saying to you is, I think we've come up a way. This is pretty, you can't see this very well. But what this says is one GOP. One GOP. And so this time, running for party chairman is not going to be somebody's name against somebody else's name. Instead, there are going to be two names essentially being co-chairs of the party. And this is the way it works. One of them is a non-establishment guy. That would be me. But I'm open to hearing from the other side. And I've tried to work with people on the establishment side, and I've gotten some heat from my side because of it. The other guy is a guy named Frank Thorwald. You probably know Frank, don't you guys? Sure you do. So he's very well known in Republican circles. He worked in Bush administration, Reagan. He's been around a long time. Now, he is an establishment guy, but Frank is open to non-establishment things. He's willing to talk. So what we're going to do is take the positions of chairman and executive director of the party. And that's going to be the administration. But it's going to represent both sides. And we're going to put a cabinet around us with the establishment people and the non-establishment people clearly around us. Jose, that's what we were talking about the other day. To put people out there who can talk reasonably to make decisions together. Now, at the end of the day, the bylaws say whoever's the chairman still gets to have the final say, but that's kind of like being president. That's the way it is. But we feel okay about that because they own everything right now. We don't even have a seat at the table. So Frank is willing to say, yes, I'll go with it. I'm willing to do that. So let's do it. So we're going to be running as one GOP, not a name, but a concept. So when you go in there, as you are and I am, we're going to be state committeemen voting for this new administration. It's going to be us against the McCain people. And so what we're going to do, there'll be names of different politicians all around, and then there's also going to be signs that just say, one GOP. We're going to work together at the top, which will bring us together at the bottom. Because this bottom to top, that ain't working. There's fighting, there's purging that's been done by our administration, trying to purge out PCs that aren't establishment PCs and put in their names to control the districts. That has to stop. So we're fighting each other instead of fighting the enemy that we're assigned to fight. And the enemy that's picking our pocket. We're sitting here right now with the possibility of having a socialist, bisexual, lying phenomenon as our senator. That should not be. Should not be, and it's a fault of the party. Yes, so it's a problem for us. That's just one thing. And then you look down ticket at so many other things. We've got some real trouble. I mean, Steyer being able to come in here and think he can push this proposition around, and what has our party said about it? Nothing. It's coming from the Democrats, and they're quiet about it. We should be all over them. We should be encouraging everybody to vote against 127, vote against Californians. I wrote a robocall for Michael Fargas. Michael Fargas is the guy who's the PR guy working on this for APS. And I said, say this. Say that these guys from California are coming in here trying to tell us what to do and how we should do our energy. And it needs to be clean energy, that's fine. But we have a clean energy source. It does no pollution. And we've spent billions of dollars on it. We've invested in it. And I don't know if Guy told you this, because I stepped out of the room, I had to go to the restroom. But here's the deal. That under their plan, that 127, they would shut down the nuclear power plant that we spent billions on. And instead, we'd have to put up 2 gas-fired fossil fuel plants to take over when the solar panels can't work at night and when it's cloudy or the wind's out. And we'd have to buy those. It's insane. So what I said, Michael, is they don't know that we have this apparently because it's excluded from what they call clean energy. That's only solar and wind. Well, it's not. Nuclear energy is fantastic. It works well. Yes, it has waste, but I don't know if you know about this, but today, with what they've got today, they simply drill a hole in the ground about 2 miles deep. They drop the waste down it, put some concrete on it, never leaves the place. Doesn't have to go out to some center. These are all new designs. We don't have that at this, but it can be converted. It's because technology's changed so much. The same thing that brought fracking in can be used in waste disposal for nuclear plants and the new plants that are being designed elsewhere in the world, mostly by American engineers. It's available. So the point is, whether you're against nuclear energy or not, we have it. We have it. We spend billions on it. Now, you just want to throw that away to an inefficient technology? Oh, by the way, I have solar panels in my house. I've had them for 10 years. I got a solar panel system. So I know it. I'm not against solar panels. But they don't scale. And I think that's what Guy was saying, or somebody said something about scale. They don't scale. They do not scale. They can't work at that level. To require 50% to come from solar and wind, it is, yeah, it just doesn't scale. So I would totally advise voting against it. But the point is that the party should be taking positions against things that are clearly democratic. We should be pushing at all times against the Democrats. We don't, because why? McCain did not want that. Be quiet, sit down, I'll let you know. And I'm not just cramming on McCain because it's all the establishment people, but he was the leader of it. And he's gone now. So now there's a power vacuum, and now people are trying to slip in and take that vacuum. There's no sense in reciting the names of the people who are trying to do it, but that's what we're faced with. So in the midst of this, I want to introduce a one GOP concept where we will talk about these things and we will push to have it. We're going to have a voice at the table of both establishment and non-establishment people. So it's a new concept. It's not been done. But if we can heal our problems here and get back on track to what a party should be doing, then it can be taken to other states too. So I wanted you to be advised of that.
Who's still Michael's last name?
Michael?
The Michael that you said is working with Stein.
I didn't say it. I don't know who's working with Stein. Oh, I said no. Michael Vargas is working for APS against Stein. So he's on the APS side. Sorry. Thank you. Thanks, man. Let me he had to say that first. Okay. He's got one more. He's got his mic back there.
Okay. What's your name again?
Tim Horn.
Tim Horn. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I
don't think he was here.
I'd love to get your card and talk to you at some other time.
Anytime.
About how to fix the American political scene. And I've got a lot of ideas on that. But
that'd be great. I'd love to talk about it.
There's a point I want to make here. What I think is a really huge problem. I mean, this is the problem you've got to solve. I was involved with during the Ron Paul movement days.
Yes.
And his effort to get nominated here in this state.
Yep.
He should have received the nomination, but it was stolen. And I was at that convention along with DC people that I know very well in the Republican Party. And so we knew a lot about what was going on.
Yep.
And I mean, I've never seen such blatant lying, crookedness, total disregard for the rules of the party, inability to address those issues, inability to communicate, and inability to invoke any intervention from any other judicial or legal authority in this state or this country. And I thought, my God, this thing is totally corrupted.
Yeah.
How can anybody with decent consciousness have anything to do with any of the political parties?
Right.
That's why I'm an independent. And so it seemed, and there's a whole crew of people, large numbers from all around the state in the Ron Paul movement who are were burned, know they were burned, and know that the Republican Party is crooked from here to Timbuktu. How do you deal with that issue? That's your problem that you have to solve.
Actually, I don't have any problems, but I understand. So you think parties are corrupt, right?
Oh my God!
Then you need to read.
No, I'm trying to tell you. I know.
Then you need to read my book. It's called "Ruling the Elite: Moving Power from the Parties to the People." And in this book, I talk about all these problems, many that we're for sure a lot of people are aware of. So you like it, you get reinforced, and there's data, and I've got, a lot of footnotes and stuff in it. But I also have remedies, and I'm going to talk a minute about the remedies. But in this book, I said, what we should do is try to work with Republicans first because they're closer to the Constitution. And if we can work with them and change them, we will. We should try, let me just finish, we should try there first. And if we can, that'd be the fastest way. But if we can't, then we have to look towards maybe a third party that actually will represent the ordinary American people, because there's nobody now. Now, having said that, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm running to be the administration of the Republican Party in this state, because I want to eliminate corruption, because I want our party to beat the tail off the Democrats, who, in my belief, hate ordinary Americans. All they have is an ideology. And we've got to stop them, with all due respect. I mean, I used to be in the left, and positions differ. The thing here is, I'm acting on mine. I'm acting on Tom. So that's the point. But let's do talk sometime. I love to talk about this stuff. And I'll tell you what, I can't think of many conversations I've had in the last 5 years that I haven't learned something out of it. And I've learned stuff when I talk to Ernie. I always learn some when I talk to Jose. Guy is a wealth of information. He's a quiet guy, but you want to know something about what's going on in this town? This guy is a good man. I mean, if you can vote for this guy, then you vote for Guy. He's a good guy.
Let me just add one last
Yes.
observation. This is the kind of people that you need to involve yourself in creating the kind of situation that you're talking about. It ain't going to be talking to the establishment figures in the Republican Party. They're the corrupt sources, and what they're going to do is try to develop and use a co-optation strategy to suck you in and fool you and screw you. That's what they're about.
Well, here's what we have in any institution. You're, of course, right, because any institution is designed to keep being an institution, right? They're all designed to protect themselves.
Right.
And the Republican Party will too, and they have. But that doesn't mean you don't try to get a strategy of one GOP, and tactics to make your point. You may not get it all. It's democracy, it's messy, but compromise is the key. But over time, you win. Those parties got power because they were, Republicans Party, you know what they started as, and you know what they fought against all the time, and still are today. They're still being called Nazis. That they started the Ku Klux Klan. All this, that they were responsible for Jim Crow laws. And of course, that's a total lies. But the media goes with it. And we all suffer because of it. Okay, but we'll talk some more detail about how to help stop corruption and things we might want to do. I think this would be a great conversation we'll have. But let's get a couple of questions in first. He was really next. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Your idea for one GOP, I think, is intriguing for any political movement or party. I have my doubts simply because trying to rope everybody into supporting one thing is how they're trying to hurt cats. I don't know. But I know tons of Republicans who call themselves fiscal conservatives. For instance, a couple of months ago, we had a guy, Bob Ranch, you probably know him. Okay? He called himself fiscal conservative, small government, libertarian leaning Republican. Then you ask the guy a few questions, he wasn't anything like that at all. He was a big government, neocon, lock them up, throw away the key. My question to you is, isn't it mathematically, financially impossible for somebody to call themselves a fiscal conservative and at the same time call themselves a foreign policy conservative or a law and order conservative?
Well, as a conservative, I'll tell you, the definition of conservative is like the definition of being a liberal. It's why. So there's a lot of different kinds of conservatives inside. And there's a lot of misconceptions about other people that would call themselves conservatives, and people point fingers and say, well, you're not really conservative, much like in the liberal side of the party. So, yeah, there's questions. There's not a pat answer for what's liberal and what's conservative. Maybe there will be sometime, but generally it's going to be who's got the power.
Well, aren't those people like Bob Branch really hypocrites for saying they're small government when in fact they want lots of government?
Well, I wouldn't say I don't want to pick on Bob, because, well, I've never talked to him about this particular thing, but I know him, and I know what he wants in education. Of course, he works at high levels in education, and that is an institution in every state. I mean, that is a big deal. We throw a lot of money in it, and some seems to disappear and not work. And so he wants to work in that system that's already established. Will he cut it back? Yeah, but of course he's going to look at Trump right now. He just said, I just want 5% reduction. Just 5%, a reduction in the increase. How about that? People are freaking out because it rattles them all. Gosh, the next thing, he'll want to fire people that don't work. You know? Oh my God, who would think of such a thing? All of us would. But at any rate, hopefully those changes will happen. And most people don't think Donald Trump is a fiscal conservative either. I mean, the debt's gone up. You know, they're starting to work on it. Their argument, although I saw, I forget the guy's name the other day. He was talking about this. And anyway, he's in the Trump administration. He was making a bumbling attempt to explain, yeah, the debt's going up, but what he should have said is, look, we're raising business first. We're getting more revenue out of that than we ever have. And that's true. But now we got to get the spending side down, which Trump's working on. So his heart's in the right place. He's trying to do it. But, you know, you talk about inertia. Boy, the governments that we've set up or have been set up on our behalf, quote unquote, they've got a lot of inertia, and they don't want to change. So we got to try to bump them before they swallow us all. You know, that one thing they had years ago about the new income tax form, how much did you make? Send it in. I mean, that's where we're all headed. They're going to, I mean, if you trend it out, they're going to get everything. Everything you ever made. So that's it. But that's a good question, but it's a matter of definition. And I'll ask Bob about that, and then I'll let you know when I see it. I'll make it back and let you know. Please.
Okay, so this conversation's got started at least 3,500 years ago, you know, and one could argue we're in worse shape today than we were 3,500 years ago because of all the centralization of it. But the whole so-called right wing is true diversity about, you know, various opinions should be allowed, but you're going to try to make one GOP. There's sort of a contradiction there. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you have one position that encompasses all these many positions?
Well, let me explain. So, now we're not saying there's going to be one position, but it's going to involve both sides of the party to make the decisions about where we're going, how we spend the money, what we do, because we plan on restructuring things the way they are to make it so the way PCs are done. I don't want to get into all the terms, but as state committeemen, you have more to do. You'll have tasks to accomplish, and instead of right now, we do, well, Jose's a good example. Jose has his own project going on. It's outside the party, but he goes and he tries to keep track of everything that's going on in the state legislature. Well, from a conservative perspective, well, the party should be doing that. The party should be grooming candidates, trying to find out and vet candidates to bring them up to get guys like Guy. You know, Guy just came forward himself and said, yeah, I think I'd like to be on the city council. Now he's vice mayor. He's done a great job for anybody that's conservative in any range. The guy's been there for us. He's the guy. So, but the party should be taking more of an effort in candidates in teaching people how they work in a campaign, as opposed to individual districts who really don't know, especially a lot of the small ones. They don't have the assets. But the party needs to be involved in that. So those are the kinds of things. So as far as positions, yeah, there's a difference between the left and the right, or we call it the liberals, but establishment and non-establishment in our party. But we want to get them at the same table. Right now, they refuse to talk to each other. They only talk about each other. And that puts us in infighting all the time. It's like a civil war going on inside. Got it.
Thanks. I'm going to make Tim my campaign manager next time. At least I got
well, all right, good.
But I just wanted to mention that, and I might have been outside and missed something. It sounded like you were saying something about LD23 having like a co-president.
Actually, no. Talking about the party.
Oh, the party itself.
ACGOP.
Well, probably the whole party. I know our LD, so I think in a way this is a good idea because our LD23 so disconnected right now, because the conservatives don't want to show up to the meetings because it's run by the establishment Republicans. They don't get along with each other, like you said, they don't get invited to things, they don't talk to each other. It's ridiculous. It's a good point that if you had a leader on both sides together, maybe then everybody would show up to the meeting. Because I can remember when LD 23 used to have like 100 people show up. Now it's like 20 or 30, it's pathetic.
40.
So if we can bring these two groups together, that's great. If you can do it statewide, it's fantastic.
Well, we're going to take it from the top down, guys. So that's what I was talking about, was I've got a concept called One GOP. And we're going to start at the top. Frank Thorwald and I would run for essentially chairman and executive director, and push one, and this new, we'll call it a cabinet, of people from both sides. Not a whole lot, but when we have meetings, all state committeemen are going to be invited. We're going to put a streaming thing out to all state committeemen so they can see it on both sides. We're going to sit there and talk about the issues, make our decisions together. So both sides will be heard. We're going to make decisions together and move forward. We got to stop fighting with each other and purging PCs and all that stuff that goes on. It's terrible, and it drives people away. Good people get driven away. We got to stop it. So thanks for saying that. And of course, it would work at the LDs too. We're going to make that trickle down. But we got to show it can work, and that's our plan. And if we can do it in Arizona, we can show other states how to do it. So we're trying to set it up to be something that can be replicated in other states. So any other questions about One GOP or anything like that?
Do you have copies of the book available?
You know,
I just got it online.
I have some at my house.
Where's your house?
It's up in North Scottsdale. So I'm really sorry. I really thought I should bring some because this group reads and really pays attention. It's on Amazon. So it's Ruling the Elite, Tim Horn. It's on Amazon. You can get it. And you got it there.
Is it out anywhere else? I don't buy from Amazon anymore.
I don't want to.
That's spies.
Well, for this book, you should buy it from Amazon. But no, it's just on Amazon. Okay. Have him buy it for you.
Yeah, I just bought it.
I'm just trying to help out.
I just bought it a couple minutes ago on Amazon. I found it for $8.98.
There you go. Well, you can buy them used. So it's good too. So, yeah, that's good. And there is a Kindle version too. It's out there.
The Kindle version's probably cheaper.
Probably.
I like physical books.
Yeah, I like physical books too. This is my own copy. And so you wonder why I have so many things? Because I'm writing a second edition. And I've got lots of notes of things that I want to elaborate on in the second edition that's going to come. But the thing you like about it, and when Terry reads this, he'll be able to talk about it, are in here there are solutions to discuss. I don't think I have all the answers, but I've got some that I think you're going to like to hear, at least topically, what they're about. So one of the things, and I talked to Ernie about this, and by the way, Ernie was nice enough to have me on his radio show after being here the last time, and that was a wild time. If you've ever been on Ernie's radio show, it's a wild time. And he will bring other people in to even make it more wild on his side of the mic. But it's really, but you know what? Ernie can take it as well as he dishes out. He can. So that's a good thing. So did you want to ask a question?
I did. So if you remember back about, I think it was 2013, the legislature passed a bill to make it much more difficult for libertarian candidates to get on the ballot. And then we started collecting signatures, and we got enough signatures to refer to the ballot, and very quickly the legislature took that back. They learned their lesson, and then they came back in 2015, and they did it again. This time, much more focused on libertarians, and they got us kicked off the ballot. It's currently there's a legal case going on. It's at the Ninth Circuit. We're challenging that constitutionality of that. But I will tell you, bluntly speaking, if you want freedom, you don't get more freedom by getting rid of libertarian candidates standing up there and saying the things that need to be said, which has been stopped by your GOP for the last 2 election cycles. There were no libertarian candidates except Gary Johnson on Arizona's ballot in 2016. There are no libertarian
Well, you're going to be happy to hear. I get it.
On the ballot.
So you're going to be happy to hear that, as for me, everybody should have a place at the table. I've shown it by setting this up. Everybody should have a place at the table. So we should have, yeah, I'll tell you, back in Ohio, I had a medical software company, but I also did some other things that put doctors into PPOs. And I had the doctors that are going, well, we don't want chiropractors. We don't want chiropractors. We don't want naturopaths. And I went to him and I said, well, you know what? We're going to have naturopaths and we're going to have chiropractors. If you can't compete, then don't join, but we're going to have them. And you know why? Because people use them, people like them, and they should be at the table. And guess what? They are.
So the question is to you and to your GOP effort is, are you going to be advocating for changing the ballot access back to where it was, where libertarians were on the ballot regularly? We got to stand up there and say the things that you Republicans were afraid to say time and again, and give you some cover so you had some to maneuver instead of running to the left, which is where you are now.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're portraying me as one of those Republicans, which I'm not, just because you keep saying you. No. However, I can tell you that it's democracy. So what we're planning is we would sit down and talk about this issue between us and our cabinet and make a decision. And however that group comes out, I can tell you that I will advocate for that because I like all voices at the table because, as I said when I opened this meeting, we all learn something when we're challenged. We learn something from other people that don't think our way. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. So, no, I'm for that. And as well as the Green Party, all of them. Everybody should have a place at the table of democracy, which is the ballot in Arizona.
Very good. If you'll excuse me, this is a shameless plug, but I wrote a book too. And it's a political thriller set in the future. And it's kind of like the Civil War, but it's not the North and the South, it's more the East and the West. But I think you would enjoy it. So it's called Of Courage and Character by Guy Phillips. You can get it on Amazon and Kindle just the same. And I get $1.25 royalties, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Guy. I'm sure it's good. I haven't seen it yet. So some of the things that I talk about, and I talked to Ernie about on the radio show, his radio show. Okay, I should say a little bit about me because I guess that's covered enough. I talked about being a state committee and all that. That's good enough. You get it. I'm a Republican. So one of the things I put in this book is that there's no one, there's no office, there's no place that any of us can point to that says, oh, those people are there to protect our rights. There's none. No, there's everything. There's school, there's coal mines, there's everything, but nobody, no place to protect our rights. And so I advocate for a citizens' rights movement to get us to have all, imagine this, everybody gets treated the same by the government. Oh my Lord. What would Don Lemon have to say about that? Yeah, imagine a United States where they treated everybody the same. Now you heard our opponent, or against 126 up here, talking about businesses, picking winners in business. But we also pick it on the personal side, on the individual side. When our government is saying, you get to have this special program because of your skin color, your national origin, your sexual preference, whatever it is, when we have amendments that say you can't do that, imagine a government that had to follow the law. Well, there wouldn't be sanctuary cities. There wouldn't be an issue about anybody coming across the border in one of the 4 caravans, there's probably 5 or 6 more after that, already forming, but we don't have that. So there's big things that we're missing that the parties don't talk about. And what I'm going to try to do is get our party, the Republicans, to talk about them, advocate for them, to get what we need as ordinary Americans. It's not more power for the party, it's more power for the people. We need to give up tax money. We need to give up power over the people so that the people have more money to spend and they have more ideas and possibilities about how they do it. And nobody feels bad about their color or gender. Everybody's just treated equally. The politics of favor are ruinous, and they've been ruining us for years. The Democrats in particular have gone hog wild on it. But the Republicans on the establishment side have enabled it to happen. Who's the loser? Ordinary Americans meeting on a Saturday morning, having breakfast, trying to figure it all out. We lose. And our kids after us, because they accept a whole lower set of freedom. They're born into a lower set. And when more is taken away, they don't realize how far it's already gone. We have to teach them. And we have to reteach our government and instruct it. And you can only do that through the parties. They've got the power to do it. And it's true in all the democracies. You were going to make a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing is John Shattuck introduced the bill, we call it the Strong Medicine Amendment. He introduced it, I think, 12 times. And what it stated is very small, very simple. It says all articles, or all bills originating in the House of Representatives must state, for Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18 of the United States Constitution, the article, section, and clause of the United States Constitution that gives them the authority to do it. JD took it a step forward and said, while Congress has the authority to delegate certain regulations to the various alphabet soup agencies, that before those regulations come back to haunt the citizens and put them in peril, that they must go back to the United States House of Representatives so that they can assign article, section, and clause of the United States Constitution that gives that regulatory agency the authority to do that.
Sure. That's in the book. That's in my book too.
Senator John Glenn gets up on the Senate floor and he says, why, the Americans don't care about the Constitution, they just want us to do things. They just want us to get stuff done.
So wrong.
Well, if we had to do that, we could not even have passed the American with Disabilities Act. Now that's a good act, that's a noble act, I agree. But the statement is very, very telling. Now, when Mike Reagan's the one who called me and told me, I didn't know he introduced it, I'd given the bill to John Shattuck. Mike called me and that's how I found out about it, actually. The point being is John had 112 co-sponsors at one time on it. And I said, why didn't you have 435? I mean, both sides of the aisle. Now, I'd like to see something like that. And when Frances Barwood was on the city council, she was vice mayor, I don't know if you know Frances, she tried the same thing in the city of Phoenix, or something very similar. Karen Johnson did the same thing when she was in the state legislature. But you talk about getting vilified by the press. And here it is, it's a government number. And once we get a government number, we should be able to have free discussion about it. Yay or nay.
That's right.
But even that, they get vilified. The point I'm getting at is, I would like to see something like that in the Republican, and a commitment from all the Republicans and Democrats, even more so from the Democrats. The Democratic Party is really unified, whether you like it or not. That's why I think you're following their strategy. You follow their plan because it works. Don't follow their ideas.
Well, I would say this about the Democrats, having been one. Yeah. I see the Democrats as, they're not really unified. I hate that's such a trite word anyway.
Well,
but they control their people. They control, they reserve the right to decide who runs for any office. If they don't want you running, you're out. That primary, that's just a suggestion. And they've done it, right? And they've done it. Republicans don't do that. And then we end up getting terrible candidates in many cases. And it's like, well, we don't have a possibility of winning. So
you produce 10.
Their tactics are to win. And ours are, I don't know, play the game.
You produce 10 items to the Democrat Party, and they'll argue and fight a little bit between them, but at the end of the day, they walk out at arm's length on one solution, usually not so good.
They do.
You get the same 10 to the Republican Party, and they bicker and come up with 10 different answers.
Right.
And you get together with libertarians, Michael, with 10 people, and you come up with 20 different answers and 20 different, and they're all better than most of the time, the Republicans or the Democrats.
Well, let's agree. I'm going to take back the floor now, but let's agree that democracy is messy. Any form of democracy is, even a constitutional republic, is messy. But it really gets messy when you avoid the Constitution too, when you ignore it. Like was suggested by somebody making that comment to you. They don't care about the Constitution. Tea Party people care about the Constitution. If we had the rule of law actually functioning in the United States, we'd be a much better, quieter, even-tempered country without the polarization that we have now. But we're not. In my opinion, again, I'm coming from the right, I think when I was on the left, JFK was on the left, everybody was out there on the left, and I thought that was, it's humanitarian, it was good. but they left the playing field. They're no longer, we're not on the same football field. They're across town playing some other, it may be football, but they're playing across town and, and all the media is over there. But there's a game of democracy that the Republicans are still part of, played on this football field. We would like to have the Democrats back playing on it, as opposed to being against the Constitution and a lot of the things that's gone so far left. But it's good to have two sides, or three or four. But we need everybody in the same field agreeing that at least on this base, we've got it. We can argue about what it means. We can argue about how we do it. But the base Constitution was written to keep our country together. Now, if it needs to be changed, we can do it. There are rules. And it doesn't mean you can go around it like a bypass, like the National Popular Vote, or the Long Ball Equal Rights Amendment, which eliminates all sexual roles, the use of the term man, woman, all that stuff. We've got a culture that's been built out of that Constitution and all Western civilization. We must pay attention to it. Now, I'm going to go back to this for a second here, because otherwise we'll be here till 3 instead of 2. Okay, so the Citizens' Rights Amendment. This is what I call what we need out of a civil rights movement. And it's not a civil rights, but citizens' rights. It's like civil rights, but really, it's rights for everyone. Not just because you were black, which was what the civil rights movement was about. It was a good movement at the time. I was involved in it, and it was good. But who knew that that would be a basis for making a whole section of people be treated in a superior fashion to others in the country? Nobody thought that. We thought, no, we'll just make them equal. But that's not what happened. Indeed, look what happened with women's rights and what happened there. I met a woman and out in Aspen, and there are only about 5 for every 5,000 men out there usually, but I just happened to bump into one. But at any rate, in Aspen, yeah. So, where is that skipping? So, anyway, so she told me she became president of a company in Washington, D.C. And it was a consulting company, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I was the first woman hired. I'm a consultant. She had a PhD or something, whatever.
What kind of consultant?
They consult with the government on different things, depending on what the government wants. And so, anyway, she was telling me, and since I've been hired, we were able to get all these new grants because they made her an owner. And so now we have special grants for women. Now they're going to go there. And then she said, and we've got all this new business. I've hired 100 people. So we've doubled our size. So that's great. And she said, I haven't hired a single man. I'm going, so that's what your progress is all about? You doing the same thing that you're taking advantage of now? So that's not good. And then we have that woman that, she was pretending to be a black person working for the NAACP. Remember her? And I called up the radio show that these guys were talking about. That guy's gone. He was on 960. And he's gone now. He wasn't funny. But I called him up and he said, I said, you're talking all about this woman with the NAACP, but you're not talking about why she did that. Why did she do that? Well, we have no idea. Bull. You do, of course you do. Why did she do it? Wouldn't say. No, she did it because it was an advantage to her. It was an advantage of her to pretend like she was black. That's so wrong. And you see it a lot. You look at Pocahontas. It's an advantage to her to pretend like she's a minority. Hey, and it turns out Pocahontas has less than the average American as an American Indian in her. But the point is that the politics of favor has created this. But I will say to you, as I've said for years, and I used to say on my radio show in KKAT, 960 The Patriot, it's a zero-sum game. It's a zero-sum game. The whole thing of discrimination. You cannot discriminate in favor of someone without discriminating against someone else. So they always say it's good because it's not discrimination. We're just favoring them. You can't favor someone without disfavoring someone else, whether it's your own children. Son, you've been great. I'm going to take you to Disneyland. Oh, sorry, daughter. You have to stay home. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, treat him better. No, you're going to be annoyed by it. And our government does it to us every day. And now it's come full tilt to Don Lemon, actually saying on national television, roughly, well, we have to do something about these white men. I mean, deportation or something. What are we going to do? The last time I heard anything close to that, it was a speech that Adolf Hitler was making about the Jews in Germany. This is wrong. And this, unfortunately, is how far left the left has gone. They left me a long time ago, but it's what we got to deal with now. It's real. It is real and totally wrong. So we have to end the politics of favor at all those who practice it, at all levels, whether it's sanctuary cities or comments like that. That guy should be totally fired. He shouldn't be saying anything. No person should be saying anything like that about another person in America, especially someone that has, in my opinion, is in the privileged race in America today. Saying that, well, the privilege is yours while the government continually discriminates against white people every day. It shouldn't. And I say that, I would say the same thing if I were black. This should not be going on. So we have to stop it. Everybody's got to get to equality. How do we do it? Okay, so it starts out with recognizing a civil rights amendment. That would have to come by somebody, maybe us, but it would have to come. But number one, you'd have the right to a free market economy. Number two, you'd actually have to prepare budgets, and there'd be a process that would start at the top. A budget group would put it together first, a real budget, a business type budget, then they would take it to the House submits it, and it goes through the process it does now. Right now, it's just cobbled together. Nobody knows what we're spending. They won't even audit the Federal Reserve, and we don't even know what's in the budget. And then they have earmarks to change it after that. Remember Obama said there would be no more earmarks? Then he signed a bill, I think it had 8,750 in it, and $7.7 billion, and that went through. Thanks for being here, Guy. So federal term limits on everybody, including our judges, including the Supreme Court, in my opinion. We should have a vote of confidence be part of our Citizens' Rights Amendment. That if we don't have confidence in something, we can vote it out. Whether it's a chairman, maybe even a president, and certainly bills like Obamacare that nobody wanted, we should be able to vote it out. Nullification. That's more like that. But you have vote of confidence on people, nullification on bills. We should also have federal initiative. We should be able to initiate bills for the federal government to vote on. You can do it in Arizona. Can't do it at the federal level. They don't want to hear from you. Equal treatment under the law, which is what I've been talking about. Politics of favor. We got to have that. And then we need to control our citizenship, which is a battle right now. Birthright citizenship, I write about this in the book and the details of it. And we have to protect and reform states' rights. Someone in it, you said, I think, hey, you know what? They forget the people started this country. Well, yeah, in particular, the states formed the nation. It wasn't the reverse.
Right.
But,
Alexander Hamilton turned that around.
Right. And the federal government loves it. They wallow in it every day. It's like, you guys are nothing. No. States have to be taking our rights back. Cannot let the federal government walk on us. We got to push it. Got to push back. So all those things are the details I have in my book. I thought you might be interested in talking about what a Citizens' Rights Board might have divisions of underneath it. So I think this can all be done by a Citizens' Rights Board that you go to, and their job is to make sure that American rights are taken care of at all times. So if there's a bill, the Citizens' Rights Board looks at it first. If there's a new bureau, anything, well, what does this do to citizens' rights? How is it affected? It's kind of like the environmental people now. Well, we have to do environmental assessment before you can build an outhouse, for crying out loud. Well, how about if you're changing the rights or impinging on the rights of Americans, that we know it first and it gets stopped, not in the court 10 years later, if you're lucky, and $100 million spent, but rather at the outset, it says, nope, can't do that. Can't do it. So that was part of that, and there's much more, but you get the idea. Then a division of national planning where we'd actually produce national goals, not like the Russians did, where it's ironclad, you have to, no, but we need to have a direction where we're going so you can apply money to the places that you've decided to go. What we do right now, it's battled every day, and people fight back and forth. And then I think a division of accountability would be part of that, where you make sure that no one's above the law, which we don't do right now. We've already covered that. Judiciary, you got to limit the orders, establish federal initiatives through there too. And then we don't even have a Bureau of Elections to make sure elections are fair. No, they're hotbeds of deceit, corruption, lying, theft, from top to bottom. But we need somebody that protects our elections, because as ordinary people, if the elections aren't right, we don't have our rights. Nobody's going to protect our rights. It's got to be the elections have to be correct, should be at the very top. So I imagine it's something like the Federal Reserve Board, only it's the Citizens' Rights Board, to make sure all rights are there, everybody's protected equally across the board. And you get into legislation as well, energy procurement. There are other things that they'd be in charge of. But the point is, they would all be about the rights of the citizen of the United States, of which it's way down here in priorities for government or the politicians. It's really not even talked about.
They keep themselves there until the citizens, enough of the citizens start ratcheting up their participation.
Right.
It ain't gonna happen.
And that's my point. We have to fight it and push it back to where it's supposed to be, of what our Constitution says, and we need to secure it. Three of the things I'd like to see, just are bigger, but not exactly that. But here's three things. We deal with it every day, and then I'll let Terry take the mic. But one of them, we have problems with the news, right? I think I talked about this last time. We need certified news. So that the only way you can report news is if it's certified, much like certified organic food, or what a plumber has for rules, or a doctor. We've all got them, but we have none when it comes to
You need a free market.
that.
You need a free market, not a certification board. We don't have a free market as you know.
Okay, but I'm not talking about a market. I'm talking about news. Right now, everybody's getting confused because they're being lied to. And then the excuse is, well, you guys have voted that in, but we were lied to, right? So we shouldn't be lied to. So if you can't, in business, if I lie, you know what happens to me? Oh, they're going to get me. I'm going to be fined, and I could lose my business, lose my license. You can't lie, but in the news, it's okay. So it should, just let me finish this point, now I'll call it. So we need to have something better. And what I think would be better, there may be other ideas, but certified news could be started immediately. And it's simple. You can have all the opinion shows you want. You can say whatever you want, but that's not news. If it's going to be news, certified news, it's the truth. If it can't be supported, it can't be on it. Now, what would it mean, technically? If you're CBS, let's say they lie, for them, or CNN, but I'm sorry, you're off the airwaves. Or you're off the internet, you don't know. And you use the same psychology against Google and the other people that are trying to discriminate. You do the same thing. What's that? I need to start cutting it short. Okay. All right, so we can cover the other things at another time. But think about that certified news as a possibility. I'll take your question and end it up, and that's it.
Well, okay, just a minor point, you put, CI, the national media is contracted by forces inside the military intelligence and the CIA and some of the other intelligence structures to publish information that is written deep in the top bowels of the so-called deep state. If the deep state is lying to us, that's the issue you have to deal with. Getting some other gang of people to certify what's true and not true is not going to work out.
Well, that's what you think.
That's what I know.
And I know you know, but you can be wrong. That's part of the issue. It's not the only issue. What should happen is the NSA, in my opinion, the NSA and all of them should be told immediately, you can't collect information on Americans anymore. The only people other than politicians and anybody in office, you can collect all their stuff because we want to know what the hell they're doing. And then report back to us anybody that's wrong. You can collect on anybody else in the world, but leave Americans alone. We got a constitution. It says we've got a right to privacy. And these people are taking it away on every phone call we make and every email. It's wrong. Somebody needs to call them out. Will Trump do it? I don't know. But if they won't, then we need to. It's gone way too far. You're right in what you're saying, but it's only a sliver of the problem. We need to stop the collection of that information. And you're not allowed to write the news. We gotta do this. We need more power. Okay. Any other questions, Ray? Right? Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for coming. We have a good one today or not?
Yeah.
How about that? Does everybody have a ticket? Anybody that doesn't have a ticket? All right. I'm going to be the drawer today. He's been drawing, open the drawing, there was some over here.
Yeah, those books and magazines are free.
Yeah.
All those books and magazines over there are free, please take them home.
Okay, first chance for the book. 2851.
Right here.
All right, last name.
There you go. Okay. 2856.
It was probably Ernie.
2856.
There we go.
One more. And then, we'll see you next month, first Saturday in the month, 2857.
Next month,
2857.
next month we have Dave Hodges.
2857, we have one? Hey, how about that? Bye.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, let's have a big round of applause for Frank.
I want to congratulate you guys. You did a good job singing the song this morning. Usually it's really good, it hurts my ears. But you guys did a good job today.